people, like for the Guinness World Records. I did some appearances for them at state fairs. I did the Johnny Carson show.
My next guest has the distinction of being the strongest woman in the world.
Live, on stage, Jan deadlifted 415 pounds, a new women's world record.
Good heavens. If I tried that, every organ in my body would be lying somewhere on the stage over there.
No, you just have to know how.
Oh, well, sure, of course. You can also fly by yourself if you know the secret.
In the summer of 1979, Jan tried for another world record. In Scotland, she attempted to become the first woman to lift the Dinnie stones, two boulders that together weigh about 740 pounds.
And one of the things that I knew was going to be complicated for me was that the one stone is larger than the other. And so it weighs over 400 pounds alone. And they have rings in the top. They're small rings. And so when you're pulling on them, they're actually really cutting into your fingers. I try it once. The front one comes up easily. The back one is like dragging on the ground, but it's not leaving the ground. And I'm disappointed, put them back down, try again in just a second. And then I'm really frustrated. And so I take a walk away.
Jan takes a breath. She walks toward the nearby river. Then her husband Terry walks over and reminds her of something that had happened earlier in their trip. A Scottish official had offered whiskey to all of the men traveling with Jan, but he didn't offer any to her.
And Terry comes over to me and he said, I know you're thinking about this, but I want you to take your next attempt. And I want you to remember the whiskey man, as we were calling him. And I did. And then I lifted him up. And they didn't come up very far because you don't have to. They have an expression in the Highlands. It counts as a lift as long as you can feel the wind beneath the stone. And then there wasn't another woman who did that till 39 years, something later, something like that. So it's a very, very long time.
Jan's husband, Terry Todd, is actually how she found her way to weightlifting in the 1970s. He was a champion powerlifter himself.
I did not do sports to speak of in any meaningful way in high school because I went to high school before Title IX passed. And so this really started out with, me following my boyfriend and then my husband to the gym. And then I met a young woman in Austin, Texas in 1973, and I saw her and she was doing deadlifts. And as we talked, she encouraged me. And then I found I could deadlift the 225 with no trouble.
Jan Todd went on to help launch women's powerlifting as a U.S. sport. She helped organize the first women's meet in April 1977.
For the first several years, if you went to a contest, they were normally run by men's rules, and men's rules don't allow you to wear a bra. There were some cases where women would show up to compete, and then somebody would say, oh, well, you can't wear that. The second issue then came up, well, if you had a bra, could you have a bra with an underwire in it? As if that would somehow make you bench press more, right? There are young women now who can pick up the 418-pound Husafell stone in Iceland and carry it for long distances. There are a number of women deadlifting over 600 pounds. That would not have even been imagined back when I began training. We don't gender speed, right? It's okay for girls to be fast. And we don't gender flexibility or a lot of other things. Muscle is muscle. And I think and hope that women in the future will continue to celebrate the idea that it is okay to be strong.
Well, that's Jan Todd, pioneer powerlifter and current professor at the University of Texas at Austin in the Kinesiology and Health Education Department. Bonnie, you write at length about Jan. What is it about her that you wanted to celebrate so much in the book?
I love Jan. She is, not only a person who could talk about, what it felt like to occupy a body that could do all of these extraordinary things, as she talked about in this interview, but also what it meant to be a woman who was doing this in that time when women were not doing these things, And she told me, kind of context of when she was coming up. She said, my dad didn't let me do ballet because he said it would make my legs too muscular.
Oh.
And her grandma, because she was a fast kid when she was in elementary school, and her grandma would say, oh, you don't want to be running too fast because you don't want the boys to think that you're faster than they are. And so she has spent really the last 50 years observing and writing about the changes that have happened in women's sports and fitness. And she still does it. She still, she is a sports historian. She still also directs the Arnold Strong Man and Strong Woman contests every year. And, she is the reason that there is an Arnold Strong Woman contest to begin with. And I love that it's not just her ability to talk about what it feels like to be strong, but also what it means to be strong for a woman. And, over the arc of this time, it's just, like she was talking about where, we now see women deadlifting well over 600 pounds and carrying, the Husabel stone. Like, it's pretty awesome. And it's also, it also reminded me when I was listening to her talk in the interview that she did for this program, that she told me, it used to be that they thought that women were like half as strong as men. And then it was like 2/3. And really, the reality is that, women have only been doing these things, these public demonstrations of strength, for a very short time compared to men. Men had been doing this in a capacity that's like military, it's training, it's competition, it's sports, like all this stuff. And women have only, again, like within Jan's lifetime, like this, so much has happened, so much has changed, so much has been, deemed more acceptable for women. The world has opened up much more. But there's still a lot we don't know.
Yeah.
A lot we don't know about women's capabilities.
But Bonnie, let me ask you about that a little bit more, because in terms of accepting that women can and should be building their muscles, we have come a long way.
Yes.
But again, biologically, though, men, I've read those facts from your book. Men do have more muscle mass, right? And they do have a higher sort of hormonal propensity to grow muscle faster, right? So, I think it's still a fair statement to say that, like, literally speaking, on average, men are stronger than women. Or is that not fair to say anymore?
Well, I think it is a reality because it's just like evolutionarily what biology has done.
Yeah. It just is biology. Exactly.
Right. And it's also, you look across animal species, like generally speaking, or rather oftentimes there's a size differential in the male or the female of the species because of these, evolutionary reasons, like where there are roles to occupy. And, in some species, in raptor species, the females are larger because they're the ones who are doing the hunting of food, or like, warning of predators, and all of this. And so, there are reasons that this is true. And in the human species, like, of course, across human history, that has been true for men and women, and that, these public demonstrations of strength have really skewed towards men. But that does not
But it's a public
mean...
demonstration of a specific kind of strength, right?
Yes,
and that's the other thing I take from your book, though, because, talking about all the different kinds of muscles, in terms of sort of what we idealize, it's only one. It's only one kind of strength that gets that place in our culture. Whereas, bodies that are also using muscles but in different ways are actually quite equally remarkable. But we just may not look at that as, oh, here is the the picture of strength. I mean, honestly, I'm going to be selfish and say I think of like moms all the time as like pictures of strength, but that's not necessarily what pops to mind when we talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're absolutely right. Picking up a heavy thing is a very, that's a very, I don't know, like it's an atavistic thing. And also, it is funny to kind of think about even today how when we see that happen in front of us, it's so we applaud it, and we see that is, we have a response to it. I think all of us do. But you're right. Like, strength is, you can talk about strength in many different ways, across many different kinds of bodies, and also things that you want to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bonnie, we only have a few minutes left, and there's a couple more important points that I want to hear from you on. And one of them is, again, just biologically speaking, and check me on this, in terms of our ability to build muscle, we kind of peak as human beings relatively early, and then I don't know what it is after 30-ish. Really, what we're trying to do is preserve what muscle mass we have.
Yes. So most people know about, osteoporosis and osteopenia, which is just, the age-related loss of bone, which is very normal. It happens to everyone. And less people know about sarcopenia, which is the age-related loss of muscle. And so, again, it happens to everybody, whether you're a professional athlete or not. It's totally normal. It happens, unfortunately, starting in your 30s. But what that means is that, strength training is really important as you get older. And so you just need to keep thinking about your muscles and, again, like strengthening them, investing in them for health as you get older, because it does become more challenging, as many things do when we age, to put on that muscle and keep it on.
One of the things about modern life, where for all the wonderful technologies we have, I'm thinking about the car especially, in terms of reducing the burdens on our body, the downside is that we used to live lives that just in the natural course of a day, we were working our muscles more than we are now. I mean, I'm sitting in a chair right now.
Me too. Talking.
And so that's why we've had to refocus on sort of intentional exercising of our muscles. Yes. But I also want to just quickly ask you, you mentioned this before, there's a lot of medical research right now on the importance of strength training. That's being translated into the media in a way that I frequently see headlines that say, if you want to be a super ager, do this one thing, right? And it's strength training. Are we at the risk of over-promising what strength training can do?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I do want to pull that apart a little bit by saying, like, when you see the headlines that are like, live forever, if you want to, eat, you have to eat this much protein, or you need to do this, and these are the 5 things you should be doing. I hate that. I don't like that messaging, because it's like it's a secret, and it's not a secret that you need to make your muscles strong to, be able to do everything that you want to be doing as you get older. And that's for all of us. And I also want it to feel for everyone that muscle is for you, like no matter what age you are, no matter what gender you are, no matter what your experience is with exercise or lifting weights, that it is something that all of us can be doing in some way to move our bodies, to really, like, also for joy. I don't want to forget about the joy element, because that's what really movement is. And we all need access to that.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes me back to what our listeners were saying about just how wonderful they feel as human beings when doing that.
Yes.
And I just want to note to everyone also that if you haven't done any kind of strength training before, don't start without supervision from a professional or your doctor. But on that note, Bonnie Tsuy's book is On Muscle, The Stuff That Moves Us and Why It Matters. Bonnie, thank you so much for the book, and thank you for joining us.
It was such a pleasure to be with you, Meghna. Thank you.
I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. This is On Point.
On Point is a production of WBUR Boston and is distributed by APM, American Public Media.
Support for On Point comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and from Seed. Seed's DSO1 is a 24-strain 2-in-1 probiotic and prebiotic engineered to survive digestion, support healthy regularity, and promote whole body health. Learn more at seed.com/public. And BetterHelp, committed to helping clients with issues ranging from relationship challenges and goal setting to grief and depression. Learn more at betterhelp.com/public.
Good morning. It's 11:58, KUOW-FM Seattle, KUOW Tumwater, KQOW Bellingham. I'm Guy Nelson in for Kathy Faulkner. And just ahead, KUOW's Week in Review news panel with host Bill Radke. Hey, Bill, what's on the rundown today?
Hey, lots to talk about this week, Guy. Good to see you, Guy. We've got National Guard troops possibly coming up the coast, or maybe not. We've got new police contracts to talk about, the cost of living in Seattle, and the risks of surveillance, and of course something to smile about. That seems like a lot in an hour, but I'm confident we can do it. Hold me to it. Stay tuned.
Support for KUOW comes from HX Expeditions, working to connect travelers to Antarctica and beyond for 130 years. On board science and education programs, wildlife encounters, and all-inclusive adventures on small ship expedition cruises. More at travelhx.com. Change the way you see the world.
Opening up a coffee business in Uganda usually doesn't spark the ire of a community. But when a female entrepreneur said she'd only buy coffee beans from women, men got nervous.
I saw that coffee is something that can change a life of a woman. So I started preaching a coffee gospel to the women.
Defying cultural norms through coffee on All Things Considered from NPR News.
All Things Considered starts at 3 this afternoon on KUOW.
Here in Seattle, we're building the technologies of the future.
But we're also dealing with some big economic challenges.
I'm Joshua McNichols.
And I'm Monica Nicholsberg. Join us on Booming, a weekly podcast from KUOW about the economic forces shaping our lives here in the Pacific Northwest.
Listen on the KUOW app or wherever you get podcasts.
Next time on Climate One. President Trump just signed a new mega bill that threatens our transition away from fossil fuels. But that doesn't mean all progress stops.
We are still in an energy transition. Electrification is still ongoing. Our tools have now become much more expensive.
Trump's mega bill comes for the clean energy transition on the next Climate One.
That's this evening at 8 and tomorrow afternoon at 2. Rain all day today, high 61. Rain likely overnight, low 46. Tomorrow and Sunday, also rainy with highs in the mid-50s. It's 12:01 now, this news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Gerald Ford Carrier Strike Group is being sent to the U.S. Southern Command Area of Responsibility, according to a statement from the Pentagon spokesman. The U.S. already has a sizable military presence in the Caribbean. Forces have carried out 10 strikes on alleged drug vessels in the region, resulting in more than 40 deaths. This is the first day federal employees are going without a full paycheck for the job they do. The government's been shut down for 24 days. Today, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said one of the most acute impacts is on air travel safety.
If we don't have enough controllers, if we have controllers that are more stressed and less able to do the job, we pay close attention to that, and we will reduce the capacity of airplanes taking off and landing, or we will cancel flights.
However, a political stalemate continues over a GOP-backed short-term spending measure. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries tells the New York Times he is endorsing Zohran Mamdani for New York City mayor. The Brooklyn Democrat says they've had areas of principled disagreement, but adds a party needs to unite in the face of an existential threat from President Trump. The FBI says it is investigating a shooting near San Francisco Bay Area Coast Guard base last night. Katie DeMenedetti of member station KQED reports law enforcement officers shot at and wounded a truck driver.
The shooting comes after federal Border Patrol agents arrived in Oakland Wednesday for what was expected to be a major immigration enforcement action in the area. Video footage shows law enforcement agents open fire on a U-Haul truck that tried to back towards the base and ignored instructions to stop. The Department of Homeland Security said in a statement that the driver was wounded in the stomach. It also said a bystander was struck by a fragment, treated at a hospital, and released. For NPR News, I'm Katie DeBenedetti in San Francisco.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has met European leaders where they agreed to step up the pressure on Russia to negotiate an end to the war. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer hosted the meeting. Here's NPR's Fatima Al-Qassam.
Speaking after the meeting of this coalition of the willing, the European supporters of Ukraine, Prime Minister Starmer said they stand with Kyiv stronger than ever.
Ukraine's future is our future. What happens in the weeks and months ahead is pivotal for the security of the United Kingdom and all our allies.
He says the coalition agreed on a series of measures to bring President Putin back to the negotiating table, including taking Russia's oil and gas off the global market, committing to providing Ukraine with long-range weapons, and releasing funds from Russia's frozen assets. President Zelensky says pressure on the aggressor is the only way to end the war. Fatima Al-Qassam, NPR News, London.
It's NPR News.
This is KUOW News. I'm Noelle Gasca in Seattle. The Mercer Island School District is reopening an investigation into a former teacher's 2011 relationship with a student. This is the second time in recent months a teacher in the district has been accused of engaging in inappropriate behavior with students. It's also the second time district officials have been criticized for how they handled it. Investigate West reports then English teacher Curtis Johnston is accused of pursuing a romantic relationship with a then senior in his class. Administrators met with Johnston at the time and sent him a warning letter. Johnston continued teaching there for 14 more years. Mercer Island Superintendent Fred Rundle says the district is reopening its investigation and has filed reports with local police and Child Protective Services. Things are about to get wet and windy around the Puget Sound region.
Well, we're in for a stormy weekend, probably the stormiest one we've had in months. A bit windy up in the north, Whidbey Island, north to Bellingham, and Port Townsend areas could see gusts 45, maybe even 50 miles an hour this morning into the early afternoon hours.
And Dana Felton with the National Weather Service says those high winds could cause some power outages around the region. Meanwhile, an atmospheric river is expected to dump more than an inch of rain onto the Seattle metro area by tonight, and we will see more rain throughout the weekend. As for the mountains, Snoqualmie Pass could get up to 3 inches of snow, and between 6 to 10 inches could fall around Stevens and White Passes between Saturday and Sunday night. And it's that time of year when things will start getting much darker earlier. We will see our last 6 p.m. sunset of the year Sunday night. And when it comes to falling back or setting the clocks back an hour, that will take place at 2 a.m. November 2nd. It's 58 degrees in Seattle right now. This is KUOW News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, which monitors safe driving habits to determine a personalized rate at Progressive.com, not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
This is KUOW, and welcome to Friday. Welcome to KUOW's Week in Review. I'm Bill Radke. I've assembled a super team of commentators, analyzers, people who saw the week go by and have thoughts. That's what we are, right? Political analyst and contributing columnist Joni Balter. Welcome,
Hi there.
Joni.
I was going to wear my frog outfit, but they're on back order.
Yeah, the unicorns are so hard to come by right now. The lead singer of the Long Winters and co-host of the Omnibus and Roderick on the Line podcasts, and once a Seattle City Council member, too.
That's right.
John Roderick, welcome back.
Nice to be here. It's been a
Good
long
to see
time.
you.
It's
It has
good.
been a long time. Thanks for coming. And founder of Earth Finance and former member of the Washington State House and former member of the Washington State Senate, Reuven Carlyle. Welcome back.
Good afternoon.
Good to see everybody. And by see, I mean you can watch us on YouTube if you like, because we live stream the show. Just search KUOW Public Radio, and you'll find Week in Review happening. Before we start with our first topic this week, I'm inviting you to our Year in Review show. Annual Year in Review. We did it last year. We're doing it this year at Town Hall Seattle. It's a little bit early, December 4th, Thursday, December 4th, 7:30. See you at Town Hall Seattle. Go to KUOW.org/events and buy your ticket. Okay. Topic number 1, attention Seattle billionaires. Okay, Medina would be fine. Medina's close enough. If you don't want federal troops in Seattle, and you might, but if you don't want them, you might want to tell President Trump that. This week, Trump said he heard from the CEOs of NVIDIA and Salesforce, quote, great people like Jensen Huang and Mark Benioff and others have called, saying the future of San Francisco is great. Therefore, we will not surge San Francisco on Saturday. Joni, this gave you an excellent idea of who could talk to President Trump.
Yeah, you got to find some of those folks who donated to the destruction and, I guess, rebuilding of the East Wing of the White House. Those folks have decided somehow.
Which companies? I'm trying.
Well, we're
like
talking
three of them.
Microsoft, a little bit of Amazon. You know, they're all friends. Well, anyway, some of these folks could maybe working with any mayor that we elect or the current one, if this happens sooner, and figure out how to keep the National Guard and various other federal agents out of our fine city. And that is what happened in San Francisco. It absolutely worked. So you have a brand new mayor there, pretty tough on crime, Daniel Lurie, 73% approval. Hello? Has anybody ever heard of a mayor having 73% approval?
Weird.
But he does. And Trump was ready to send, and I don't even know if they were in the air or had already arrived in San Francisco, but he was ready to send them into San Francisco for crime and some of the other things.
ICE protests.
The ICE protests, protecting federal buildings. And Daniel Lurie sort of worked it through two of the wealthy CEOs of the great city of San Francisco. And the next thing you know, Trump says he didn't send the troops in because Daniel Lurie asked nicely. And these two billionaires said that he was working on it, that he had the right ideas. He was the right guy to lead. Don't make things worse.
I mean, that's marvelous, except I don't think that's how we can run this country, right?
Really?
I think that that's playing into exactly the narrative he has, which is that he and his billionaire friends are going to run it like a handshake deal. I think that the lower courts keep getting overturned by the higher courts in terms of whether or not he is within his legal rights to send federal troops to American cities.
Right. He tried to send troops to Portland. A lower court said he couldn't. This week, an appeals court said he could. It's not settled yet.
Right. But I think what we saw in Portland, which was this kind of absurdist response to the troops, and we're seeing that across the country. I mean, I think a lot of us are afraid of this quote unquote, scare quotes, culture war that Trump really would like to see turn to violence. He wants nothing more than left coast cities to WTO protest these situations and confront the troops with aggression. And what he's seeing in the West is we're confronting his troops with frogs and absurdism and, you know, in a kind of artful, we're completely not engaging at the level that at the level that fascists would like, which is to man the barricades. And I think that is actually an effective response.
Last week, a guest from the Washington Policy Center who was sitting in Reuven's chair said, you know, you want to think that it's frogs and unicorns, so it's hilarious, so it's going to be effective. And he said, that's bunk. That's not going to persuade anybody. It's something to make satirical, smarty pants liberals feel good about themselves. I'm not saying that's true, but that was his take.
Yeah, there is a reality to weave both the comments together. You know, ultimately, Trump does listen to the local billionaires who support him. And I think there is something very real to that. The disequilibrium of having troops in our streets of Seattle is simply not worth taking that risk. I mean, I think we have to be really serious and sober and thoughtful about this. And I think it is important to connect with the companies that have relationships with Trump and the billionaires that have, and to just partner to have that deeper conversation that says, look, this is not healthy for our city. We don't need it. It's not constructive. And meeting it with a little bit of frivolity and chaos, and, at the altitude of not taking the bait and showing up in costumes and everything is fabulous. And I think it adds levity and joy to the chaos. But ultimately, keeping the troops out of the city is really important. We can't take the risk, and we really have to say to those folks who do have direct relationships, this is a time to stand for Seattle and the community in a really thoughtful way, because it's just not worth the risk of troops marching down the street.
So you sort of hit it from air and land and sea. I mean, the truth is, if Donald Trump wants to send the National Guard to 12th and Jackson, he can absolutely do it tonight. He can get away with it and go to the courts later and figure it out. But what's wise, I thought, about all the costumes was its absurdity meeting a different absurdity. The absurdity that Portland or Seattle are under some sort of siege. And we all know one thing Donald Trump doesn't like is being embarrassed, being made to look like a fool or silly. That was the thinking.
On that, did you hear about the guy in D.C. who followed behind an Ohio National Guard patrol, filming them and playing dum 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 da-dum
Star Wars.
The Star Wars, the Darth Vader march, and they turned around and arrested him, and the ACLU is suing on his behalf. And that, I thought that had the flippant satire, but also while portraying the troops as the bad guys in maybe the most popular pop culture meme of all time. So you had satirical but not goofy. It was like No Kings, but with more pointed, more flair. And you have troops who don't like the protest allegedly violating their civil rights in retaliation, which gets at the whole enterprise.
The thing, when you try and criticize the frivolous response as something that didn't have any effect, what you're not recognizing is the incredible negative effect that a different response would have engendered.
Right.
They're looking for Antifa and black bloc activists burning cars, and they're not getting it.
Right.
And so what's humiliating is that their narrative just isn't materializing.
Right. They really absolutely want the chaos.
Yeah.
It is critical to their narrative at the Trump administration. They want the burning cars in the streets. You get, one broken window and it would be on Fox News for 3 weeks straight.
And we're not just looking at legal precedent. I mean, what we're establishing right now is social precedent that future generations are going to look back and say this was an incredible instance of presidential power, presidential overreach. How did the country respond? How did the cities respond? And it can't just be that we asked our billionaires to cutsle up to him. It has to be that we had a collective response.
And also, what's up with Portland and its billionaires? Didn't they have somebody they could call to keep them out? Because they are on the ground. They are on the ground somewhere in Oregon. They're not.
Looking at you, Phil Knight.
Yeah,
they're not as good looking as our billionaires.
Yeah, they only have two billionaires, right, in all of Oregon.
Phil Knight and
wasn't there some Intel billionaire?
Oh, that
or
sounds
something?
right. Sure. Yeah. By the way, President Trump has claimed that he sends troops to cities that can't handle protests with the police that they have. This week, Seattle announced a new police contract. Did anything in there have any relevance to this size and strength of Seattle's police question?
Well, yeah, the salaries, I would say. The salary increases, I should say, because you're going to have more police officers, and it will at least have, instead of a police department that for many years now, 2 or 3 years, been down 300, is now net up, I think, 92, something like that number, officers. So at least the officers will be well paid. There'll be more of them, and when you're working with a president like this, who you hilariously just called President Troop.
Did I say Troop?
You did. You did.
But we were all being respectful of our host.
What does that say about me?
I saw you react to something. I thought, what?
President Troop, I like it a lot.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, you just send them out there, Bill, as always. I think that is one item that's in that that contract that Bruce Harrell was pretty happy to sign.
Yeah, 13% pay increase from last year through 2026. There's a lot more details, but more pay for one thing.
And the only other thing is that at that level, we always want our police officers to want to or be able to live in the city. They don't have to, but this makes it more likely that it's possible.
the thing is that we are. Trump is saying that our cities aren't policed. Liberal cities are advancing a narrative that is that we can not only police our cities, but do it in a different way, right? Community policing is part of our program. We're not just on defense when it comes to talking about policing in cities. We have an alternate philosophy of urban policing. And so our position...
What is that alternate philosophy?
Well, the alternate philosophy is a lot of conflict resolution needs to be de-escalated by funding, programs like CARE, which this is a step toward.
These are, for listeners, these are unarmed, non-police crisis responders. Somebody is, they're screaming in the street. They've fallen down. They can't. There's a CARE team of non-police, and this new contract doubles the size of that team, lets them respond to more of these low-risk calls without a police escort. I have a quick quote from the head of that CARE department, Amy Barden.
I'm going to quote my chief of staff. When he heard about the contract yesterday, he just wrote back in all caps, "Let's go." So thank you.
Yeah, that's CARE.
Yeah. So this is a counter narrative to the administration's narrative that we're not doing a good job policing.
And this point, John's point, actually touches on a much broader movement. Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson have this book, Abundance, and it is really taken storm within Democratic leadership and circles. And I think because it's really getting to this core question of, can Democratic states and cities govern with high quality implementation and operation? And I think that's about public safety. It's about housing density. It's about climate work at the state level. And ultimately, I think the representation of the core question is really legitimate, which is we have to show that we can govern. And we have to do it with real integrity. And that means operational efficiency. And it touches on affordability. But this contract just is a representation, I think, that, 4 years ago in a COVID world, this city was total, complete chaos relative to tents everywhere, relative to homelessness, and I think the aftershocks of COVID and empty downtown, the whole 9 yards. I think today it is dramatically better on almost every level, and there's affordability challenges, of course. But ultimately, part of that is because I think we're rebuilding the police department, and we're doing it with some level of integrity relative to these other services. And I think the mayor deserves a lot of credit for it.
But it represents forward momentum. In other words, we're not just adding numbers of police officers and doing things exactly as we used to.
Right.
We are innovating, and that's how we are getting more successful on our streets.
I mean,
yes, go ahead,
people
John.
don't appreciate how much the Seattle Police Officers Guild is intransigent in terms of trying to reform the police department, and this also is, incremental progress, bringing the guild to the table, and exacting concessions from them.
Even when it comes to the non-armed CARE department that you referenced, because for a long time, police officers have complained about having to go to some of these, to do all this responding when someone is just in need of a welfare check or something. Except, I've been reading about how officers have, this is the characterization of the CARE department. They use the word undermined, but I think clearly would do things like just not dispatch the CARE department, or drop sort of close the case once the CARE folks showed up, because the way it was, the CARE department had to be accompanied by police officers.
Right. But that's
so
what's changed,
the new contract partly changes it. There are a lot of limitations. There's still a lot of cases where police have to show up. If this non-emergency call is not in a public space, so it's if it's in a car, if it's in a business, if it's in a home, armed police have to be there. If a person is in a tent with at least 3 other tents near it, armed police. If there's drug paraphernalia, someone's using fentanyl and there's, the tinfoil, so drug use, that's a crime. Armed police have to be there. So it's incremental. And you tell me, I had the impression, you used the word intransigent, John, I had the impression that the police guild even though they supposedly don't like showing up for this, having to do all of this rickrack, we're still using the fact that that's their job as contract bargaining leverage. Is that fair?
It seems to me that that's just simple built-in opposition. It's not going to be a ton of officers responding that way for the simple reason that you said. They don't want to go out on some of these calls, but there was sort of organic, I don't want these folks taking my job or the necessity for me. But one also thing about
by organic, you mean job security?
Yeah, that's yeah.
Okay.
But also, the contract allows for 24 existing care responders, crisis responders, to go to 48. But it actually long-term allows for the number to go higher. And the police officers were resisting this for a long time. So that's why it's progress.
I mean, CARE is a referendum on liberal city management, right? This is exactly what we are trying to advance, is a philosophy of policing and a philosophy of managing cities. So we have to be mindful that this is a test case, and it's one that certainly on the left we have to honestly measure the results.
Okay, before we take a break, we said a little bit about the mayor and a little bit about the election. This week, the challenger in the mayoral election, Katie Wilson, told KUOW that her parents send her money every couple of months. She said to help with childcare expenses. She said she hasn't tracked exactly how much money they send her. And there's been much reaction to this, and I'm trying to understand when and why do a candidate's personal assets affect your vote? Tell me why this is important, if it is to you.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say I have a personal rule that I don't begrudge anybody getting help from their parents, having money, making money. I don't want to go down that route. This situation here is about the fact that many Seattleites don't know Katie Wilson, don't know her. You tell us more about you. There's been a couple of profiles. They haven't been that long or in depth. And so when I read the KUOW story, my thought was, you won't like this word, but authenticity, and we overuse it in politics. But I feel like it applies here a lot. I spoke to Katie Wilson last evening about this, and she was a little more detailed than in your story. She's had time to think about it, I guess. She said that she's received like around 3 checks covering childcare. And the childcare began when she started running for office. In other words, her 2-year-old daughter was at home, not incurring this big bill, and her parents decided to...
Because running for office is very time-consuming.
Right.
You can't also be making money while you're running for office, right?
Or caring for a child. Frankly,
caring for a child.
I had a little baby when I ran for Seattle City Council, and it was incredibly taxing. My mom was a great help.
Yes.
So therefore, I think what's going on here, one of the questions I had, and I think how it relates to running a city is, who are you? What else don't we know about you? I would like to know those things. And we can argue or have fun here in some way. But, she has portrayed herself as someone who lives in a 650 square foot apartment, I guess it is. Tough times, tough living. And I think the reason this story struck such a nerve about how she would be as mayor is tell us who you are. You tell us how you connect.
I don't get it. What is she not telling you about who she is? If she lives in a small apartment, because if she didn't, she'd have to borrow even more money from her parents. That sounds relatable. So what's the authenticity question?
Yeah, I think the personal finances are just a deep representation that the people of Seattle, as Joni said, have a right to get to know this person who wants to lead a $10 billion, 14,000-person organization.
Yeah, I agree with
She is professionally a one-person lobbyist. She has an organization that she's effectively one-person lobbyist. For me, as a former elected official, I find it incredibly jolting, the language on her on her campaign materials that basically takes credit for a series of major public policies the last few years. She was a participant in stakeholder groups and yet claims full-on ownership and leadership of all of the passage of those issues. That's the same to me as the lack of transparency and the lack of credibility on the personal finances. The reason it hits a chord, in my opinion, is that ultimately her narrative and her identification and her credibility and her qualifications for the job are that she connects and is the representative of working class people. But we don't have any transparency of whether that's true, in that she dropped out of college, Oxford University, 6 weeks before graduation with not a penny of debt. So to me, these types of examples are representative of her credibility. And I think it has touched a chord for a very real reason as the city gets to know her and ballots are literally on the kitchen table.
I haven't heard anything inauthentic yet, but yes, John.
Well, this is the problem, and I know as a journalist you're going to want some concrete, evidence of something. I don't think taking money from your parents is in any way disqualifying.
And when she was asked about it by KUOW, she said, "I get money from my parents." So haven't heard any evidence that she's been hiding that, or. So go on.
But you have to appreciate that vibe is a major political energy now.
Humans run on vibes. I will give you that.
Humans run on vibes.
We're not rational.
And this particular election is very, very vibe centric because Bruce Harrell, who's a biracial child of Rainier Valley, is being portrayed as a millionaire, billionaire,
corporate seller.
Not that he's a billionaire.
No,
but
he's in bed with billionaires.
But those are two different things. All that is separate from whether she's taking money from her parents.
Can I give you one thing that actually I think really, really connects? In the KUOW story, when she was asked, you said she was super forthright.
No, I didn't say super forthright.
Well,
but go on.
Forthright to a point. Okay. But she was asked at that time how many checks were sent. She said she didn't keep track. And that, to me, applies directly to running a city. You should be able to
Why
know
would that apply? Are you saying
personal finances versus public finances?
So she didn't, when my parents, I don't know exactly how much my parents at some point said, you can stop sending us money for the car. We'll cover the rest of it. I didn't track it then. You may track things differently, but the idea that translates to, and when she's running the city of Seattle, she's not going to track those.
Come on. You don't know either way. None of us do.
Know.
None
that
of us
is true.
At its core,
that comment bothered me more than any other detail.
Well, and at its core, Katie Wilson's argument is that she can solve the problems of affordability and homelessness, where the past 5 mayors have really struggled to solve this problem. And her credibility and her argument of why she's able to do that is by raising taxes, so more money, and B, by being more effective operationally than those previous mayors. And I just think these examples really highlight the lack of credibility of that. And
you're connecting to, I agree with everything you said until you connected it to something that still sounds unrelated to me. I haven't heard any evidence.
Operational integrity of running a $10 billion organization, and she's never managed a person. Here's an example. Joni, in her debate at Seattle University, moderating the debate, raised a normal, boring status quo question. And it was shocking. And it was, to Katie Wilson, what would you do in the event of a natural disaster like an earthquake? And Katie Wilson was a deer in headlights.
Okay, hang on.
Okay, so that's
pause
an example
this.
of
Just a second. I have to
abilities.
pause this. We're 6 weeks. Six was like a week and a half away from an election. KUOW, for listeners who don't know, we booked this panel far in advance.
Otherwise, he would have gotten rid of us.
Weeks from now, we're going to talk about whatever has popped up in the news. And so I brought up this. You all wanted to talk about. Sounded like this. At least Joni did this KUOW article. I have not booked a panel of people who can make the case for and against Bruce Harrell or Katie Wilson. So I think it's unfair to be winging it in that way. I was simply asking for evidence that there was anything authentic, which was your claim. I have yet to hear it, but your question about who's qualified to run the city, all that is great. And in fact, all of that has been discussed in the many debates that we've hosted on KUOW. Please go to KUOW.org/series/elections. You'll find all our actual campaign coverage in that. You will hear debates for yourself, and you can make up your own mind. John, I haven't heard you in a while. We're going to wrap up here.
I just think that we can't have a double standard in terms of financial transparency. We expect candidates to be financially transparent, and we condemn them when they're not. We don't like it when rich people hide their finances. We don't like obfuscation when it comes to not just...
But she was asked and she answered. So if you're claiming there was hiding or obfuscation, we'll have to...
Well, no, but I'm just saying, I'm not accusing her of anything. I'm just saying that the hullabaloo around this, we can't say, well, the poorer of the two candidates has no obligation to be forthcoming in advance and not get caught by a journalist, but have all of this as part of their disclosure.
Spin. Calling that being caught is spin, but human spin. I've got to pause it. We've got to take a break because we got lots more news of the week to cover when we come right back. By the way, that was a former city council candidate, by the way, John Roderick. We've got former legislator Reuven Carlyle. We've got political analyst Joni Balter. I'm Bill Radke. We'll be right back.
Support for KUOW comes from Third Place Books. Gary Steingart discusses his new novel, Vera or Faith, on Wednesday, November 5th at 7 p.m. Tickets and information are available at thirdplacebooks.com.
12:33. We're glad to have you with us on this Friday afternoon for KUOW's Week in Review. It's 58 degrees now in the University District, and we'll have rain all day, high 61. Rain in the forecast tonight, Saturday and Sunday, more rain, and then a break. Showers and some sunbreaks on Monday.
Support for KUOW's car donation program comes from local Kia dealers, featuring the Sportage Hybrid, with available all-wheel drive for all-weather capability and hybrid technology designed for fuel efficiency. More info at kia.com.
Okay, maybe not spin.
I'm not spinning.
Okay, that popped out of my head. That sounds a little harsh. This is John Roderick here, and Joni Balter and Reuven Carlyle, and we're discussing the news of the week live and unedited, and getting at it as we do. Can we move on? Since we're talking about how expensive it is to live here, one of our biggest expenses is health insurance, and this week we found out that's about to get more expensive. Partly because health care is more expensive, also because some tax credits passed during the pandemic are about to expire. In fact, Joni, you were asking me, why doesn't America talk more about the cost of health insurance? I thought we talked about it a lot. What do you mean by
Well,
that?
we talk about it a lot, but not as much as we talk about the price of eggs, I guess. So I think, and I've been thinking this since the presidential election as well, so many different things cost a lot, but the thing that is rising astronomically, look at your bills on this: health care, house insurance, car insurance. I mean, those increases cannot continue. They are so high, they are forcing so many people to not be able to afford eggs and other groceries. And I think it's just something, I don't know why, sometimes it's built into the cost of renting a place, and we just, the rents are going up. But why are they going up? One of the big reasons is the insurance, and I really, really think we have to face that and be more sort of honest about what is really bothering our ability to buy things.
Yeah, the insurance issue. When I was in the legislature, the grappling with the implications of the expansion of Medicaid and Apple Health, which we call it in our state, the role that insurance plays is exactly right. It is just staggering implications. I mean, we have in this state 1 in 5 people. We have 2 million people on Apple Health, on Medicaid. And the premiums are ready to skyrocket. We're talking out of pocket, $3,000-$6,000 plus, just at a level so beyond. And we've gotten down to 4% of our state that is uncovered. And now we're going to really, all the projections are it's going to grow up to back to 15-20%. And the implications of that from a public health, from a hospital health, and the other issue that these cuts to Medicaid touch on is rural health. These small critical access hospitals all over the state of Washington. We have this massive subsidy that we provide from the state legislature that goes out to these hospitals. The federal government does as well. With those ending, we really have an issue. So it's affordability, but it's also access to health care.
I think this is one of the issues that speaks to the disillusionment of the National Democratic Party over the last 30 years. I mean, this is the kind of regulation of insurance companies, of drug companies, of the medical industrial complex, that the Democrats should have been. I mean, these are the regulations that we put Democrats in office to implement. And the Democratic Party has been a free market booster since the Clinton administration. And so we've lost control of what is one of our core strengths, which is to regulate business. And we can play whack-a-mole with it. But when I talk about the Democratic Party to young people and they say, oh, it's unredeemable, I understand why they feel that way, because these are regulations that we should have been enacting over the course of the last 3 decades. And I mean, we've tried, but not with the muscularity that the left should be presenting.
So why is there not a big tide of support for taxpayer-funded insurance sweeping Democrats into office? Because private insurers, they have costs. We're asking, I want the insurer to pay me a lot of money when I need it, and they want premiums for me in exchange for that. If we're saying that we either need to regulate how much profit they can make, reduce that, or have more, as you called it, massive subsidies. If that's a winning issue, if the subsidy issue is a winning one, why isn't that better for Democrats?
Because the counter narrative is always reduced to freedom of choice. And we have become a country that freedom of choice trumps. I mean, regulation is portrayed as socialist overreach, and it's very hard. Or it's not hard, but the Democrats have done a poor job of countering that freedom of choice narrative.
Will Reuven, again, former state legislator, Reuven Carlyle, will state taxpayers make up for what the federal government is no longer sending us?
Absolutely not. It's untenable. The state of Washington already, after the largest tax increase in history, $9 billion, is going into this coming supplemental budget season, meaning sort of the in-between of the 2-year cycle, with another deficit. And there is simply not the resources to supplant federal dollars. I mean, with these premiums going up 21%, the federal government simply cannot expect that states, whether it's a blue state or a red state or a purple state, to be able to supplant those loss of federal dollars with state dollars. It won't happen.
So you're saying either the federal government needs to go into even more debt or needs to cut spending someplace else?
I'm saying that the partnership that the federal government has had since Medicaid was established, and Social Security and Medicare for that sake, the partnership in federal and state funding for Medicaid particularly, has been broken by this administration. And the inability of the states to make up that gap is not possible. That's why we're down in this country to such a smaller percentage of people who don't have health care, unlike 10 years ago. And Obamacare was very successful, but it didn't tackle every aspect of affordability. It tackled access.
No one has said tax the rich yet. Go on, Joni.
They will. But the thing is that many of these same forces and sentiments led to the Affordable Care Act. And now, what's the shutdown about? Insurance, health insurance. It's partly about that.
And politics,
and
but yes.
a few politics.
Yeah.
He'll weaponize anything he can, or they will.
Right. So that this problem has been with us. We sort of helped it for a while. Now, all the efforts to break down the Affordable Care Act are coming at us from every different direction, and that speaks to a lot of the affordability issues. They've been here, and if the Democrats could ever get a message spokesperson, something, they could win on this. It's very complicated. I'm someone who wrote about Washington State health care, and it's pretty complicated stuff, and so it's hard to create a really easy, digestible message off of
like tax
that.
the rich.
Go ahead.
How hard was that?
We're all wearing tax the rich T-shirts. I don't know what more you want us to.
Well,
right.
At the same time, look, the city of Seattle is in deficit, the King County is in deficit, and the state of Washington is deficit. The idea that you can retreat all of the federal partnerships, not just in healthcare, but in transportation and in capital infrastructure and highways and a whole bunch of other categories, is just not tenable. I mean, we're going to see a real fiscal challenge that faces, again, it's red states as well.
Before we take a break, I want to. We have to get back to policing actually, because one of our policing questions is how and when to surveil people. Should we put more security cameras on utility poles? What about automated license plate readers? Well, several local police departments, not Seattle in this case, but Auburn, Lakewood, Mukilteo, Renton, many more in Washington, hire a private company to track and record car license plates. They know where these cars go and when. And this week, researchers at the University of Washington Center for Human Rights informed us that U.S. Border Patrol has been logging into these databases. Does this change your opinion of whether and when to surveil?
Well, to me, this does make it a closer call, and you're already talking about a balancing act, right? You know, do you want to be more like Europe, which has just tons and tons of footage from CCTV? And don't forget, everybody has a cell phone, so when you're in public, anything you do is probably or could be on a camera. So in my case, I just weigh the advantages of the surveillance cameras near Garfield High School, Aurora Avenue North, against the fact that our federal government is apparently able to get in there. So that you just really have to balance it. I'm going to end up on the side of sort of solving and helping our police do better with solving crimes.
And the question of how much surveillance cameras solve crimes is a matter of debate.
As is how much the data is usurped by people you don't want to be getting it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a close call, but I think, when I read that a restaurant on East Lake, Serafina, had the 25th break-in in 5 years, that there's an arsonist loose in South Seattle, carjackers, South Seattle, I sort of end up on the side of the cameras.
Are there no security cameras at that restaurant?
Apparently not.
They're really
I would have done it at 23. I don't know about you, but
I think the issue is even more that the surveillance is being privatized. I mean, the problem wasn't that these cities got hacked. The problem was that this is a core functionality of this private company to sell this data. And Ring cameras are recording every single person that walks down the street, and Amazon or how the administrators of the Ring company are more than happy to provide that information from private homes to answer warrants, obviously, which makes sense. But I mean, where are the stop gaps? Where is there public transparency? And I mean, and how is this whole infrastructure going to get hacked or turned into a saleable commodity? And this isn't like some future dystopia. This is in the next few years.
Reuven, before I hear from you, I want to underline, you talked a little about how this happened. From what I read, this company says that they don't share data without permission. So the police departments must have said, okay. The police departments that I mentioned, Mukilteo, Renton, Lakewood, where's the fourth one? The police department said, oh, we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
The Border Patrol says, oh, we used a, quote, standard subscription service.
Yeah, the company
so there's a lot
actually,
of finger pointing.
The company said about the different jurisdictions that they should go in and adjust their settings.
Right.
Like it was some slider or some box they didn't check.
Yeah.
That
you mean
seems insane.
when they opened the box of these cameras, it didn't say go to settings to see if you would like the federal government to be snooping.
Right.
I would have.
Just a quick shout out to the University of Washington Center for Human Rights at the Henry M. Jackson School of International Relations. I have to just shout out, I'm super proud of that. I was the sponsor of that legislation creating the UW Center for Human Rights and worked with my good friend Peter Jackson to secure funding
Our
for that.
good friend?
Our good friend, exactly right. So super proud that they have brought this transparency question to the table so that we even know about this. At the same time, I think everyone is right that there is a real complex nuance of the interplay between private data and public data. And what you don't want, of course, is it's not a technical question only, right, of companies providing data or the public sector, the government, the police department, others providing data. We have a dynamic where we have a federal government that is fiercely, aggressively trying to secure data from all sources. And we don't have the technical right to opt out very easily of these databases that everyone is in. At the same time, we're all carrying a cell phone. That data is tracked. That data is accessible. It's not easy. It is protected by consumer rights. data sets. But ultimately, we're in everyone says it every day, an unprecedented time where the federal government is using its legal and its informal authority to aggressively secure data from every data source they can get their hands on.
So does that make anyone want to, Joni, you said no, it does not make you any less eager to have more surveillance cameras on utility poles that Seattle
No, I said that it gives me pause, but on balance.
But on balance. Right. Anybody else make a different balance?
I think the same. I do think that there is. You think these small businesses that are getting whacked over and over and over again. It is my dentist is in Finney Ridge area, and her little small shop has been busted into over and over again.
But is U.S. Border Patrol hacking into the private security camera at a convenience store?
No, I don't think so. But I do think that they're being unprecedented in their efforts to secure data from private companies and from public sources, public and private. So it's an incredibly serious, somber time relative to the privacy issue at not just aggregate, but individually.
I think this ship has sailed in terms of whether or not we can rein in the growth of surveillance. There's going to be cameras everywhere, and the question then becomes, what is, who owns that data? And that is the question across all data collection now. Every one of our phones could be hacked right now, and our the microphones are being used to collect this private conversation. So,
okay, but we could throw away our phones, which we won't. But and number two, voters.
You start,
the area where voters have some say is what the data that their government collects, and that's what this UW report is about.
Also we have to acknowledge that. That the police cameras are in a very small percentage of areas, very limited. And those areas have an extremely high level of crime. So there is sort of a thoughtful approach to the question of it's not broad-based on every street corner.
But although traffic cameras are part of this system.
That's true.
And they're presented as relatively benign, but they're also, this is true in Europe, right?
We don't have the information that the traffic cameras are being
and
broken into, and they may. What?
They're designed. I considered this bill in the legislature for many years. They are designed to make money. They just are. The cities may pretend it's traffic management and avoiding the box and everything, but it's a money-making machine.
Yeah, making
cities.
Money from people who violate the law.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, come on.
But which tells you all to slow down, stop running red lights, behave and you don't pay. There you go.
Okay, so the state law, we have a state law. I'm wrapping this up. There is a state law that bars at least most agencies, from cooperating with immigration enforcement. And the UW is saying, well, we don't know how this data was used, except the Border Patrol cited reason for some searches, and those reasons included immigration and targeting. So Border Patrol says no conflict with Washington state law. Governor Ferguson says he's investigating whether that's true, and that's where it stands.
Well, and it does seem like these jurisdictions do have the option of opting into letting the federal government see their data. So the sheriff of Twisp can say, yeah, anybody who wants it can log into it, and then that is, that becomes a very local issue.
Oh, that sounds right.
Yeah. In the debate in the legislature on that bill, which I voted for, there was a substantive conversation about this topic. And of course, we didn't anticipate the level of aggression.
How could you have
at this scale? It was just.
But that's exactly the point,
that's
right?
The point.
Is that when it comes to traffic cameras or automated license plate readers or surveillance cameras, we don't know.
Yeah. If it's there, somebody's.
If it's there, someone will try to.
So maybe we
get
do
it
know.
Because
you actually know. Bet on it.
For this exact reason that you said, not only the immigration and trying to track where everybody is, but also because that data produces value, money.
Yeah, but part of Seattle's pitch on surveillance cameras is trust us. We will not let this data be shared. If it does, we'll shut it down, etc. But the UW Center for Human Rights comes along and illuminates things.
Says they're in there anyway. Says,
and we're worried about the federal government, but the FSB or the Chinese Secret Service can also, or the North Koreans can also, if the immigration can access it, and bad actors can too.
And the part of the problem is, again, you have multiple sources of this data. You have Ring, you have the police department, you have a small town, you have the state patrol. I mean, this massive series of public and private data sets and data sources is a challenge. But
what voters can control is their government.
Is their local government primarily. But ultimately, your core question is, should there be some surveillance analysts in Seattle? And again, you get this very narrow area where a few of them exist, and those are very high crime areas. So I think there is a balance here.
Okay, we'll pause there because we've got to smile. We've got smiling to do, okay? These smiles are not going to smile themselves. We've got, that's Reuven Carlyle, former state legislator. John Roderick sings beautifully with the Long Winters and co-hosts some lovely podcasts as well. Omnibus, Roderick on the Line. And we've got political analyst Joni Balter here too, coming right back with more Week in Review.
Support for KUOW comes from UW Medicine, recognizing the research community and thanking researchers for working to advance the scientific discoveries that can help improve health for everyone. More at uwmedicine.org. UW Medicine, a higher degree of healthcare.
And from Eco Design and Maintenance, family owned and specializing in start to finish exterior design using materials and methods that help to reduce environmental impact. From landscapes to hardscaping, outdoor spaces designed to be functional and long-lasting. More at eco-seattle.com.
KUW's Week in Review. We'll find out something to smile about in a moment. We didn't mention because some listeners think I'm obsessed with nudity. I got to come through for you. This King County judge denied the neighborhood association request to close Denny Blaine Park. This group says it's a public masturbation and drug use site, and the judge said, the city's working enough on that. And so for now, Denny Blaine remains open. The New York Times reports Amazon could be on the verge, some qualifiers there, could be on the verge of replacing more than 500,000 future jobs with robotic technology. 160,000 potential new hires could be avoided by as early as 2027. Amazon says these documents are incomplete and they don't represent the company's overall hiring strategy.
Of course they do. Of course they do. Are you kidding? Amazon's been working on this since 1998.
Yeah, these documents say Amazon aims to eventually automate 3/4 of its retail operations.
100%. 98% is what their ultimate goal is.
Okay.
Yeah, outside of them, though, but massive layoffs in the high-tech sector in virtually every major company in the Seattle area recently.
Yeah, it's really tough.
That's much more reflective of the broader trends.
And back to budget concerns on that, too.
And on the Amazon, isn't it just that they are not going to hire as much rather than slash all the existing jobs? At first. No, that's fair. That's fair.
We'll see. One more. A truck driver drove an oversized load into an overpass on westbound I-90 near Cle Elum. The state closed the freeway and detoured drivers around it, and now they're demolishing the overpass. The state patrol says the driver will not face criminal charges.
Did you see the pictures of that?
Yes!
It's insane, the damage
The truck
he did.
is up and over the overpass.
Insane. And I'm very impressed that the state was able to marshal the forces to actually demolish that bridge in such a short amount of time, because, that must have been a real undertaking to plan that out and get it done. It's a real blow to the rural community that uses that overpass.
I don't know how that happens. And something similar happened on near Mount Rainier, State Route 410, the 167 in Pacific. A King County council member wants a new state law to hold motorists more accountable. Governor Ferguson says the state will pursue the cost of repairs on I-90 with the truck company.
Through insurance.
Yeah. What else? Okay, what made you smile? We're about to wrap up the show. Did anything make you on the happy, hopeful side this week?
Okay, so some listeners are going to not be happy with me about this, and they're not going to smile at me, but I am smiling at the Seattle Mariners. Yes, I know many people close to me are still crying, unable to speak.
They didn't bring in the closer.
They didn't bring out the closer, the seventh game. But honestly, what a season, everybody, please. I loved how this community came together around the Mariners, and it was what a season. We'll have another one. We will. I'm smiling.
Happy, Joni.
I loved the No Kings protest. I spent the whole day wandering around, joining multiple sort of segments of the march. spent a lot of time at the Seattle Center, and it was like the whole energy of it was not just peaceful, but merry.
Yeah.
People were thrilled to be out in force, and I think it gives the lie to the idea we have from consuming social media that our nation is at in the tremendous odds with each other. I feel like it was a unifying and fun and very from my standpoint here, a very Seattle event.
There was a piece in the New York Times that talked about sports cities, and they actually listed Seattle.
Oh my gosh!
I know. But they went through the Huskies and the venue, and they went through the Seahawks and the Mariners, even though it was a heartbreaking but beautiful season. And I just thought that was amazing, and talked about the Sonics potentially coming back. And so just that essence of moving toward and it talked about the WNBA and our championships. And so that was just wonderful. And then I always get in trouble by making a personal joy, but my son got a fabulous job this week, and young people are really struggling to find jobs. It is a tough time, and I just really feel for folks in that first step of their career. So I'm really proud of him.
Maybe you won't have to send him money. Good for him. Okay. Finally, Amazon Web Services had that outage on Monday. It took down so many like bank websites and WhatsApp and all this, broke the internet. Does anybody have a bed that goes up and down? Because
not anymore.
I do.
I used to.
I have a hospital bed.
Whoa.
And, because I have a bad back. But it turns out I didn't know this. There are people with hospital bed. They call them smart beds, and but they also have temperature control. They're connected to the internet, and you have a monthly subscription, and alarms go off, and snoring detection, and all this stuff. So there was the web shortage, web services outage meant that people's beds were stuck. Some beds in the inclined position, and there's a mattress cover that heats up. So that got screwed up. People were drenched in sweat. And the New York Times talked to a guy who thought he was lying on his laptop, and he couldn't change the temperature because the app was down. And so the tremendous reaction to how are we so over-engineering our lives.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
Do you have a photo of this? Because I know a surveillance camera that snapped one.
Put that right out there. Okay, well, now I'm being transparent because I'm telling everyone
how much
that
you
I have
earn?
this bed was thousands of dollars. I'll tell you, I didn't track it though. I did not track it.
Do we have
exactly.
to ask to know about this?
Right. Okay, Joni Balter, political analyst, contributing columnist. John Roderick, lead singer of the Long Winters, co-host of the Omnibus and Roderick on the Line. Headed into a long winter. Thank you, John.
I'm here for you.
Thank you very much. Joni, thank you. And Earth Finance founder and former Washington State legislator, Reuven Carlyle. Thank you, Reuven.
Thank you.
Peace out. Kevin Kniestedt, Guy Nelson on the board, Juan Pablo Chiquiza, Hans Twite. I'm Bill Radke. Get your tickets at kuow.org/events for the Year in Review. Thursday, December 4th, Town Hall, Seattle. Year in Review on December 4th. Get your tickets. See you there.
Support for KUOW comes from Puget Sound Energy, offering the Clean Buildings Accelerator, a program to help owners of buildings over 20,000 square feet